impact and what eyes are on this situation by those who support this president. We have Matt Schlapp here. He leads the American Conservative Union. Always good to have you.
Good to be here, Chris.
Thank you for being here. All right, so this is not petty, I'm bad, you're worse politics going on here. Do you have confidence that the president has the people around him to help negotiate this very tight space with Iran?
I think it's a tough question. I think it'd be tough for any president to negotiate this. And I have great confidence in the team he has pulled together. I think that as the president has proceeded in his presidency, as the first outsider president since probably George Washington, he's figured out the job as he's gone. And I think he's pulled the people around him who he trusts.
But he just got rid of the National Security Advisor. He's going on his fourth one. He doesn't have one right now. A little bit of a gap. No?
He has an acting National Security Advisor. He likes this title of acting. And look, he and John Bolton clearly had disagreements, and the president has the right to make changes. As you know,
100%.
Barack Obama made changes at the chief of staff and deputy chief of staff level almost every year he was president. Bill Clinton went through chiefs of staff very rapidly. These are high energy people. It's around the clock work. The chief of staff has got to be one of the toughest jobs in politics. The same for the National Security Advisor. I've been there. I've watched it. I've seen it.
National security, though, is much more sensitive than chief of staff.
Well, they're similar jobs in the sense that the only difference with the chief of staff is there's one. And the difference with the National Security Advisor, you have almost like a whole war cabinet.
Right.
So it's Mike Pompeo is very able. We have a new Secretary of Defense who's very able. We have, I know several of the people that are involved in deputy roles, and it's a good and solid team. But this is
chief of staff is a political functionary organizing. National Security Advisor is what it sounds like. And we have to be honest, this is not this president's strong point. Figuring out
he had the least experience of all the things he deals with in foreign policy. But remember, that's who we've been electing president. Barack Obama didn't have a lot of foreign policy experience. George W. Bush didn't have a lot of foreign policy experience. The last president to have a significant amount of foreign policy experience was George Bush 41. The American people are okay with electing people that have a steep learning curve on foreign policy. We've done it over and over and over again. The question is, what is he going to do with the challenges before him? You know, I've talked to several people who advise him on national security, and they say, what are we going to do when this country is challenged? It's the question every president asks. This is a serious, challenge to the country.
He's set a hard table for himself because he's got a divided populace that he spends a lot of time attributing and fomenting division. Now, this is something of his own reckoning. He blew up that Iran deal to our next topic, which is negating Obama, which is certainly something of fundamental importance to this president. He blew up that deal for that reason. He had nothing to replace it with. He just thought that doing this is disruptive. This is why they brought me here. He loosed that country on the Middle East. They are vindictive and old and savvy, as we both know as students of history. He started this. This is maybe the biggest threat to his presidency, Matt.
So Obama let loose $150 billion in assets to the Iran regime, which is the #1 funder of terror. Now, you can make an argument whether those were assets that they had a legal right to, but there's no question where that money will go to, and it'll go to fomenting jihad around the globe. I actually urged the president to pull out of the Iran deal, not because I don't want to have a different Iran deal, but the Iran deal that we had no proper verification.
It's not true.
And that was it is true.
No, it is not
true. It is true.
It had more verification than we had before it and that we've ever had.
We had to give them a notice before we could walk in any facility so that they could cover their tracks. Look, what we did in North Korea, both parties did this. Presidents of both parties did it. We didn't want to have a confrontation with North Korea, so we just tried to extend the timeline by which they would nuclearize. And it's a similar policy that Obama approached with Iran. Extend the time and hope that something changed. Maybe the regime will fail.
Multi-coalition, big countries that Iran had to worry about.
But Iran would have a nuclear weapon at the end of that term.
No.
And I'm not
only about enriching. It was a decade, and now you have nobody looking at what they're doing. They ran around in Syria, made it very hard on our men and women who are there. They're doing it in Yemen in a situation that is out of control. And now they are bombing his buddy in his backyard.
I get the idea that...
If that's true.
People love the idea that a treaty was somehow going to keep Iran in a box. And the fact is, a lot of people, and I will say I was one of them, believed that that treaty actually was an appeasement to Iran. It gave Iran all the funding it needed to do all this evil around the globe. I am okay with the president saying that deal, which would have guaranteed that Iran gets the weapon, the nuclear weapon, We should try a different way.
I don't understand. I don't understand this argument.
It did.
Because
just like North Korea.
No,
do you agree that on North Korea that it would be better if we had taken steps 10 and 20 years ago to prevent North Korea from getting a nuclear weapon?
I don't believe that you can look back that way. I think you have to deal with where you are.
So it's inevitable that everyone nuclearizes and there's nothing we can do.
No, you make deals like the one you made with Iran with partners that they worry about. Your idea
but all that did was delay the time in which they'd get the nuclear weapon.
It delayed a window, but it gave you a pause. It gave you something to work with. You removed it and have nothing except you think that Iran would have bombed, if that's true. And the president says he believes it's true because U.S. officials are telling him, and it's nice that he believes his intel.
What is true?
That Iran was behind what happened in Saudi Arabia.
I can't know. I can know what I read, and it sure appears that that's the
right.
case.
I mean, that's what the president's saying. That's what he says the officials say. That takes us to another issue: is will the American people believe this president about something like this? This is reaping what you sow.
Chris, I know that you talk about the president fomenting division.
Yes.
The fact is that Barack Obama, at this same point in his presidency, was at 39% in his presidential approvals. I know that people with the voice and the opinion that I have, we didn't like what Obama was doing to the country. We disagreed with what he was doing vehemently. And a lot of us felt like we couldn't voice it as extensively as people who hate Trump can voice it. This country is not more divided under Trump. We were very divided under Barack Obama.
I covered that administration. We weren't dealing with anything like what we're dealing with right now. And that goes for Obama also. He was coming out of one of the worst economic situations this country has ever seen. And as is fair play, he wound up paying a price for that early on, and he still had spikes over 50.
The difference with...
Hold on. This president has had no spikes over 50. He never gets a majority of this country behind him because of what he's about.
Barack Obama had a spike over 50 for two significant periods of time. One, when he assassinated Osama bin Laden, he did the right thing, good for him. He got rewarded for that in the polls. The second time was as he approached re-election, as he approached November 2012. If you track where Obama has been in his first term as he was leading up to his re-election, Trump is about where he is or higher. And the fact is the direction of the country. This is the other thing.
I have not seen that.
This
president has the highest negative ratings we've ever seen.
Let me try.
We have over half the country who thinks he can't be believed.
That's a different question. Now let me bring it.
Wait, let's do this. I want you to make all the points. Okay. Let me take a break. Let's come back and talk about what we think is going to matter in this next election cycle. We'll finish on this point. Okay. We'll take a look at taxes and where you are on that, about what transparency means.
Sure.
And then we'll go forward from there. All right?
Okay,
all right, so let's take a quick break. I gave you a little cheat there on what the tease is, but obviously, what is going to matter in this election? Will transparency matter? Is this going to wind up being about impeachment? Do guns wind up being in the mix? I want to get the take of somebody who knows where conservative heads are. All right, back with Matt Schlapp, trying to get a feel for where conservatives are coming forward into this next election with the president. Thanks for staying. So we were talking about where he is, popular and unpopular.
Right.
All right. They heard both sides on that.
But the numbers are the numbers. And the fact is that the people who say that Trump is so demonized and so hated by the American people that somehow his polls are low, it's important to remember he's higher than where Bill Clinton was. He's higher than where Barack Obama was. In fact, Barack Obama in September, the same time, the year before, the 14 months or whatever before his reelection, he was at a lower approval rating than Donald Trump. As much as people focus on those who don't like him, there's a whole other part of the country that love him. Matter of fact, his approval with conservatives and Republicans is the highest recorded in modern history.
Within party, very strong. But do you remember any other president being told 6 out of 10 of us think you don't deserve a second term?
There's no question. I will agree with you. As much as there are people, the 45, 47, the Real Clear Politics has him at 44.1% today.
But he's never had a spike over 50.
That love him, that's not true.
When?
There's tons of polls that have more. There's a poll.
Not polls that we would accept.
Well, I don't.
Like Rasmussen or something like that.
That doesn't matter to me. What matters is that do pollsters accept them? And there's no question that he's.
But if they're conservative slanted and getting more people in your party, that gives you a representative sample.
I'm not talking about polls that are slanted. What I'm saying is that I will agree with you that there's no question that he has people on the other side that don't like him strongly.
Majority of people.
By the way, most people in Barack Obama's presidency didn't like what he was doing. The difference with Donald Trump is you can't find a policy on a major issue that is different from what he said he would do. Under Barack Obama, you can find many differences. Donald Trump, you can't be surprised. You don't have to like him. You can say, I don't like the Twitter. You can say he's dividing people, all that you want. He said what he was going to do. He's simply doing it. It's pretty simple.
But all I'm saying is this. You can look. The problem with numbers is you can always find one you like. In terms of what we accept,
I'm happy to talk about numbers I don't like.
Well, then here's one. That other than Carter, and again, unprecedented problems at home and abroad, which is something that we're going to have to start thinking about. Because if this China situation keeps going this way and boiling markets, and if Iran decides to be a problem for us to show that it can flex its power, he might wind up have created his own problem.
In Hong Kong, where we had democracy protesters, that's a real challenge.
Other than Carter, nobody has been at 39% at this stage in their election. They were at 42, 43, 44, not where he is.
That is, I just walked through the numbers with you where Obama is. Now, you can say that Jimmy Carter is the basement.
Obama was at 43 in the CNN poll at this time in his administration.
I told you the way I look at polls is this. Instead of cherry picking one, and I know, look, you have a CNN poll. I get the fact that you guys will lead with a CNN poll. Fox will lead with a Fox poll. I look at the average of all the polls. That's why I go to Real Clear Politics, and you can see what all the polls are saying. The polls that some people say are skewed to Trump, and some people will say that are skewed against Trump. I think that's a waste of time. Let's compare numbers to numbers. The Real Clear Politics for Barack Obama at this time, he was lower than where Trump is at this time. Now, it doesn't mean that Trump wins automatically. This is, I'm not cocky or overconfident.
Very few one-term presidents. The time that you get screwed up is if you have a bad economy and a risk abroad, which is what he's been making for himself.
Or if you have a big scandal, and this is what the Democrats have gone for, and they're going for it with my friend.
Well, that's what he's
Kavanaugh.
presented him with.
No, I don't think that's true. I
Kavanaugh
think the collusion story was crap from the very beginning. We spent 2.5 years covering it, and I think a large majority of the American people are sick and tired of talking about his taxes, and they're sick and tired of talking about Russia,
taxes make
and they're sick and tired of talking about the scandal because Trump is simply doing what Trump said he would do.
No, he did not say, I'm going to distract and lie and create tension the way nobody ever would.
But don't propagandize that.
What's the propaganda?
He is doing what he said.
11,000 lies.
I would love to go through with who determined what those lies are. I've spent a lot of time researching those lies, and a lot of it is political spin, and yes, some errors, and sometimes when he's gotten things wrong.
Just today, I never said I'd meet with preconditions, fake news. You know that that's a lie.
I saw the coverage of what's going on, and I think what President Trump does with these regimes. I don't like the Iran regime. I don't like the North Korean regime.
Listen, he abuses the truth.
He's trying to
never
negotiate
convince me otherwise. But on taxes,
I realize
nobody gets it, Matt. Nobody gets it. You say there's nothing in your taxes. Show them. It will show transparency, that we can take you at your word, and maybe you're right.
Okay, so we have talked about this issue so many times. There's a lot of people who believe that Trump is not giving his taxes because he has something to hide. And the fact is, in a democracy, he's up in just 14 months, Chris. The right way to handle this is that if you think that what's in his taxes show that somehow he's tied to Putin, which I've heard all those fantastic
So you don't think someone who wants to be president should have to show their taxes?
I don't think it should be mandated, no. I really don't. And I think if you think, especially somebody who has the complicated financial structures that he has, which we haven't seen in a president in the time in which people have traditionally given their taxes over, I think the American people, Chris, are exhausted. At least half of us are exhausted from this search and destroy mission.
Conservatives believe that presidential candidates should not reveal their financial position through their taxes to the American people?
I think they're okay with the fact that Donald Trump gave an explanation to the American people as to why he wasn't turning them over. And I think that we spent 2 years. By the way, Bob Mueller had the ability to look at Donald Trump's taxes. If there was something in there that was inappropriate.
He did not look at the taxes.
You don't know that.
I have good feelings that he didn't do it.
Your feelings.
Well, they didn't.
I love
put
you,
it
man,
out there.
but your feelings don't matter.
They didn't put it out there. Well, look.
They didn't say one way or the other, but they had access to every document they wanted. If they thought
we don't know that he had access to the taxes.
Yes, he did. If they,
how do you know?
Because the White House said, including the president's lawyer, on several occasions, they were given every document. They were given every document. They didn't have to go through the president.
Did Mueller get the taxes?
I believe that Mueller.
Now you believe.
I believe. Not my
That's
feelings.
your feeling. It's of course it's a feeling. Neither of us know whether they had it.
Every financial document.
You don't know whether he had the taxes.
I believe that
True or
Mueller
false?
looked at every financial.
You don't know whether he had the taxes. Neither do I.
He had the access to the taxes. Yes, I do know that.
We do not know what he had
access to the taxes.
No,
if he wanted to go through them, he had every ability to go through them.
Listen, if he turned these over, we wouldn't even be having the conversation.
No, that's not true. Because the Democrat strategy with Trump is not to beat him on the issues. It's to beat him on scandal and personal impropriety. Why do they want to see the taxes? Because they want to find the next phony story within the taxes.
Everybody else
that
puts
they can
out the
distract
taxes
us for a year.
But people put out their
nobody
taxes.
in modern times has had as complicated taxes as Donald
They're
Trump.
not complicated.
They are
Come
complicated.
on, Matt.
Well, when's our last billionaire president? I'll be quiet and listen to
I don't
the
know that we
answer.
have one now. We have tax professionals who could look through this. I don't know that he's a billionaire.
Then you're saying the Forbes 400 is wrong? You're saying
you know where
that
they get their
FEC
information?
filings?
You know where they get their information?
From a lot of sources.
From him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what they do when they look at it?
So Chris,
Go ask O'Brien over at MSNBC, who was at the Times. What happens when you look at it? The number goes down, down, down.
All
down.
I'm saying is the fishing expedition, whether or not it's impeachment
Matt,
hearings
else,
or whatever
if you showed
else.
the taxes, all the intrigue goes
No,
away.
it's untrue. It's just the opposite. You're saying exactly the opposite of the truth. You really believe, CNN, look at CNN alone. If they had 10 years or 8 years of Trump's taxes, you don't think they're going to take the next 14 months trying to find any small flaw that they can find in there and say that this disqualifies him for re-election? The American people get the game on this. At least half of us do. And what we want to talk about is the issues. Even in this conversation, let's go ahead and talk about Iran. Let's talk about Saudi Arabia. Let's talk about guns. Let's talk about taxes. Let's talk about socialized medicine. Let's talk about these issues. But instead,
first of all, he doesn't.
So much
hold
of
on,
the
just
coverage.
be clear.
No, let me finish.
Be
So
clear.
much of the coverage
He doesn't
is
talk about those
dominated.
things.
So much of the coverage
Because
is
he
dominated.
doesn't talk about those things.
2.5 years on Russian collusion. My Lord.
That
was exhausting.
I'm sorry. When Russia interferes in our election and the president's campaign is going out of its way to get close to it.
Barack Obama didn't stop them, and he could have done something.
He did not know what he
them.
needed. He did not know what he needed to do. What we knew eventually.
They decided to
and when
try
he went
to
to
trap
McConnell,
Trump.
McConnell wouldn't do it in a bipartisan way, and that president did want to come off
he
biased.
doesn't have to go. He doesn't have to do what Mitch McConnell wants.
He made a mistake.
Barack Obama didn't do plenty of things
He made a
Mitch
mistake.
McConnell wanted.
No,
what he
Mitch
should have
McConnell
done,
didn't do plenty of things that Obama wanted.
Okay,
Remember,
maybe-
he said, "I'm
maybe-
here to make him a one-term president."
Well, that's how the parties work. We try to beat each other. I know this is shocking news,
Well,
but we
no,
do try to
you're-
defeat each other.
You're supposed to represent people who have similar ideas.
let me ask you-
Not what our system's
And
supposed to be
same
about.
for the news media. Their job is not to try to prevent Donald Trump
I'm
from
asking
getting a
for the
second
man to put
term.
out his taxes so we can know what he's about and what he isn't about.
Look, you're a journalist. You want more information so that you can say he's a crook. And that's what you want.
No, I would love the ability to say, hey, we have
Come
these people
on.
scrub the taxes. The Democrats have spent too much time on this. There's nothing to do.
Will you give
nothing to
me
do here.
that the vast majority of the news media in this country wasted the American people's time on Russian collusion?
No way.
So if you
it happened, the president denied it on the international stage next to the guy who did it. His campaign was making a jackass out of themselves, running around trying to have meetings they shouldn't have had and trying to make contacts that they shouldn't have had. Did they commit crimes? No, I don't believe they did.
Okay, so when it comes to the taxes, you're saying you'll give them a fair shake. You put your taxes out there.
100%.
You put
You
their
can give them
taxes
just
out there
to me
for 8
and an
years.
accountant.
Okay, fair enough. And you're saying that they won't be transfixed on the idea that now we can find a new way to get him. My view on all this is that we are distracting ourselves from the issues that matter. If people don't like Trump's policy,
he doesn't talk about policy, Matt,
yes,
and
he
you
does.
know it.
I disagree with you.
When's the last time he
doesn't.
talked about his vision of tax policy for this country by saying, hey, we're
passed
working
a
on a
ta-
tax cut
he passed
that he
a
said was a
tax
middle-class
bill.
tax cut and 83 cents of every dollar went to me?
Okay, now this is a fair conversation. The fact is that this is where I was trying to get to with the polls before we took to the break. Under Donald Trump, more Americans feel better about their economic situation, which is predominantly middle-class people, than they did under the socialism of Barack Obama.
Listen.
The fact is his policies are working to help people in their lives. And here's the deal. Here's the bet. If what I'm saying is hyped, he won't win.
Not
if
true.
what I'm saying is
Not true. You could be totally wrong on your numbers analysis and he could still win.
If what I'm saying is accurate, he will win a second term because guess what? You can go through all the fantasy of like Russia changed their vote. They didn't change one vote in this country.
I never said they changed the vote.
Well, okay, well then there's really no collusion to worry about. And the fact is that
collusion
the
is you
American
doing
people,
things you shouldn't do to try to get close to people who are an
do that.
inimical foreign power.
They didn't do that.
What was that meeting about?
They didn't do that.
What was that meeting about?
They asked to have a meeting to talk to them, and they took the meeting, and then they realized that there was
No,
nothing
he was
to
told,
the meeting.
we've got stuff from Russia
Oh my God,
about
you're
Clinton.
still, Chris.
But you're not supposed to take a meeting like that. You wouldn't take a meeting like that.
Let it go.
So you'd be okay with me doing that if the parties were flipped? I'm running against you. I have Russia offer me information. You say I take the meeting?
I have told you on your show that I wouldn't have had that meeting.
Of course you wouldn't. Of course.
But it doesn't mean that anything was untoward done in the meeting.
No, untoward. No, well, they didn't get the information. They went there for bad reason.
Can we talk about the economy? Can we talk about guns?
How are you going to pay for the tax cut?
Can we talk about the issues?
Yes, we can. I got to go now, though.
Let's not talk about any more Russian collusion.
Well,
it's not going to do any good.
I am not somebody who believes in beating a dead horse. I think that
The horse is not breathing, Chris.
when you have a Russian interference plot and the president denies it, he is asking for investigation.
He got it. He got 2.5 years of it.
I know, and if you want to investigate them now, go ahead.
Now they want to investigate his taxes, and
we'll
I'm telling
cover
you,
that.
it's not going to help
Transparency is
any
something
voter
else.
to understand how they should vote.
Transparency is something else. I like the conversation. I like it about issues. I like disagreement with decency. Thank you for checking that box.
And that goes back to you as well.
Matt Schlapp.